following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana Kersner, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health, using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. This weekend, I was at the National Women's Show, so hello to all the new listeners I met there. What a great time. Shout out to Lip Lady Canada for being the best booth neighbors ever. This week, we're talking about something inspired by an intense conversation I had at the show with a woman who felt extremely betrayed by her family. So we're talking trust and betrayal tonight. Trust is a feeling of emotional safety. It's defined as firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. We talk a lot about trust issues, but that concept is poorly understood. Struggling to trust people because you've been betrayed by so many people in the past isn't an issue with trust. It's an issue with how people have treated you. You can't force yourself to trust. I'm going to say that a lot. And it's generally a bad idea to ignore misgivings you have about a person or a situation. Part of self-compassion is listening to that voice that's telling you something isn't right. And top 10 phrase, self-esteem cannot exist without self-compassion. If you don't trust yourself and that little voice inside you saying something's up here, you can't trust anyone else. You need that success state regarding trust to calibrate for the fail state of someone not being trustworthy. So let's start there. Trusting yourself. A lot of people don't because we've been trained not to through years of chronic gaslighting. Don't believe your eyes and ears, believe me, is bad brain worms, especially for people diagnosed with a mental health condition because of mental health stigma. Throw in family power dynamics, school class sizes that are way too big, stigma against neurodivergencies, mental illness, like I said, emotional injuries, and life generally being super overwhelming. It's hard to hear ourselves think. Never mind trust what we're hearing. How do we know who's right when someone tells you that you're wrong in your perceptions? Betrayal makes that worse. Betrayal rattles our ability to judge our own judgment. We tend to blame ourselves for betrayal, which is part of where my top 10 phrase, don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are, comes from. Someone betraying your trust is a them problem. Trusting no one because someone betrayed you is a mistake that's a you problem. Instead, reassess your boundaries, not your desire to trust people. As humans, we all need to trust someone. Connections are essential to happiness. When we don't trust ourselves, those connections don't happen. We're chronically second-guessing, people-pleasing, and while we don't trust ourselves, it leads to a particular form of dishonesty. We try to be who we think people want us to be instead of showing up as ourselves. And the thing is, we can't mind read. We can't truly know what other people expect of us. And there's a limit on how much people's expectations of us matter. This is one of the hardest parts of transitioning to adulthood, and a lot of people get stuck at this part because they don't trust that their parents will accept them for who they are. As someone who had parents that absolutely did not get me, I understand how hard it is. But the choice there is stark. Be yourself and get rejected by your parents, then eventually find people who like you for you, or try to suppress your authentic self and spend your life lonely. That's harsh. But it's the truth. If you never truly embrace yourself and show the world who you really are, you'll never, ever feel really accepted and you'll never truly trust anyone. If you don't know who you are, you can't accept yourself. If you don't accept yourself, you can't trust yourself. And again, if you don't trust yourself, you can't really trust anyone else. No exceptions. No, really. No exceptions. If you don't trust yourself, you can't really trust anyone else. The concept is moot. I've been cutting ties with a lot of people lately because they've proven to be untrustworthy. Untrustworthy isn't the same as flawed. Flawed, I can handle. Untrustworthy, nope. We all have that friend who we can trust to be late for nearly everything. Okay, I am that friend. But I was on time this weekend every day. Go me. I've been working on that. But then there's the person we know is super scattered. But if we're really upset, we can trust that they care. Being a trustworthy person doesn't mean being perfect. Perfect is a lie. Stop trying to be perfect. Being a trustworthy person means that you're self-aware, have things you know you need to work on, and you're honest about when you're overcommitted or don't have the spoons for something. Being a trustworthy person means saying, I haven't had a weekend to rest for a month and I'm running on empty. I'd love to come to your event if I had more energy, but I can't. My cup is empty. Instead of saying, you'd love to attend, and then just not showing up. Being a trustworthy person means admitting when you've made a mistake as soon as possible to minimize the damage, not waiting to get caught, hoping it will just go away. If you do get caught, being a trustworthy person means fully owning what you did. No excuses, no guilt trips. Everyone makes mistakes. Not everyone owns their mistakes. The only choice you have is to own your mistakes, not never making them. Being a trustworthy person means knowing how to make corrections to prevent these mistakes from happening again. That's where the expression, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me comes from. But that expression is wrong. If you keep fooling someone, therefore taking advantage of their good nature, all the appropriate shame belongs to you. It's never a moral failing to trust someone. Sometimes what you have to trust, however, is that that person is not going to change anytime soon. And you have the right to say you're not willing to make that your problem. You also have the right to actually not make that your problem. That Maya Angelou quote that is repeated to the point of cliche comes to mind. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Now that quote's often shortened to when someone shows you who they are, believe them. But the first time part is the essential part of the statement and can't be left out. If someone lies to you, assume they will do it again. If someone undermines you, assume they will do it again. If someone cheats you, assume they will do it again. Why? Because if you accept the lying, undermining, and cheating, you're communicating that even though you're upset, they'll get away with it. You're training them how to treat you. So what's an alternative? How do you know who to trust after they make a mistake? We'll talk about that after the break. The website is fixed thanks to Alec, my awesome web guy. He put up a temporary site super fast, so the text is really, really quick, but nottherapyshow.com is available for you to fill out the contact form, or my email is liana@nottherapyshow.com. @nottherapyshow on social media is another way of getting in contact with me. I put up a bunch of stuff from the Women's Show, how to know who to trust even when they mess up, after the break on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We're still talking trust and betrayal. Now, before the break, I promised to tell you how to know who you can trust, accepting that everyone makes mistakes. Basic rule of thumb. If a person makes different mistakes each time, they're generally trustworthy since they're trying to improve. They may overcorrect, but that's a good thing. If a person keeps making the same mistake again and again and again, they're showing you who they are. Believe them the first time, or the second time, or the 15th time. They're just not going to stop without change. That sarcasm was deliberate. There are certain things that aren't really mistakes. They're negligence. They're willful ignorance. If someone is insisting they don't know why they're doing something, that means they're guaranteed to do it again until they figure it out. Trust people who can admit they're wrong and tell you how they intend to avoid making the same mistake again in a way that's detailed, concrete, and makes sense to you. They may not succeed in these corrections the first time. It may take some work, but at least there's a sincere attempt being made. I'm going to work harder, or I just have to not do that again, is not enough. There has to be something concrete and detailed, because otherwise, what are they really communicating there? Are you supposed to believe they didn't work hard this time? If they're just slacking, it suggests an element of deliberateness to the mistake, doesn't it? Except in cases of outright abuse, lying, cheating, and gaslighting and undermining are always the moral responsibility of the person doing it, not the person it's done to. The challenge in moving on past abuse is the realization that all of the underhanded things you did to survive the abuser, there's a process of forgiving yourself for that so that you can trust yourself again. And here's the thing about that, because I know a lot of people who are struggling with that element. In abusive relationships, the abuser expects you to appease them. And that includes being dishonest in the way they like. There's no respect in that relationship. Look for people who actively appreciate when you tell them difficult truths over easy lies. And never, ever trust someone of the don't believe your eyes and ears, believe me variety. Gaslighting is different from the recognition that no one has a perfect memory. I recently cut a guy loose because he kept forgetting that I told him to stop saying, "I already told you," instead of just giving people the information. The irony of having to tell a guy multiple times that everyone has to repeat themselves when organizing groups, stop acting like it's an imposition, that's straight up do as I say, not as I do territory. I had to repeatedly tell him not to say, "I already told you," because he kept forgetting. Yeah, so I had to repeat myself. He didn't. The guy was displaying a lack of understanding of the true concept of fairness. That was straight up wanting one set of rules for him, one set for everyone else. And I don't think he consciously realized that, because that realization would have been inconvenient, because he would mean he'd have to slow down, think a little harder, stop running from whatever's chasing him, and make corrections. Similarly, I cut a friend because she got caught lying, and it wasn't a little lie. It was a lie that went on for nearly a year and a half, and she blew up at the idea that she would need to confess, not just mislead some more and downplay what she did to get out of trouble. She was actively offended by the idea of confessing what she did, and that told me she didn't understand the reality that when you're caught in a big lie, any lie, but especially a big lie, the purpose of confessing is that it proves you're capable of telling the truth. You know what the truth is. You understand the concept of truthfulness and why it's important. Instead, her unwillingness to come clean showed that she was very likely to lie again. And that's being generous. What I believed was that she was guaranteed to lie again because there was no evidence that she could stop lying. And yes, I did say it was a belief, not provable fact. You never know what someone's going to do in the future. But when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. There's a big difference between legitimately having a different recollection of events and gaslighting. Someone who just has a different memory will show a willingness to compromise and give you the benefit of the doubt that you really do remember it a certain way. Someone who is gaslighting you will stand firm on contradictory things, like wanting both understanding of their forgetfulness and not like having to repeat themselves, or objecting to the concept of a confession after getting caught lying. The thing is, I truly believe both these people didn't immediately see the contradiction. And that's the marker of a truly untrustworthy person. When someone is able to double think two completely contradictory concepts at the same time, it shows they're not living in reality. And someone needs to live in reality for you to be able to trust them. Then there was a person who fairly recently accused me of being cruel because I wouldn't accept their latest round of Trust Me Bro. After all the theatrics and name-calling, the promise they made, in this case staying off social media because it was bad for their mental health, that promise only lasted a couple weeks. I'm pretty sure they went back on social media to spite me because I wouldn't give in to their, well, it was an adult tantrum. This only proved to me that I was right not to trust them. Never, ever trust someone driven by spite. And don't trust excuses either. This is hard because, it's exactly the manipulation that guy attempted, portraying boundaries and hard truths as cruelty. You are not being mean by setting boundaries and treating your time and attention as a privilege and a gift. But staying firm on this point requires a pretty big rethink that I'll get to after the next break. Yes, you can trust me to try to hold people over the break. Sorry, podcast listeners. Radio is real. There are commercials. Questions, comments, concerns. NotTherapyShow.com is back up. Thank goodness. At Not Therapy Show on social media. Be back soon talking trust and betrayal on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and we're still talking about trust and betrayal. In this segment, I'm going to talk about how to stop blaming yourself for betrayal and start putting the accountability on the person who did the betraying. First of all, the betrayal was the fault of the person doing the betraying. This may sound obvious, but blaming yourself as you scramble for a false sense of control isn't going to help anything. I know it feels like you're being responsible, but blaming yourself for a person violating your trust, all that's going to do is further erode your boundaries. You did not deserve the betrayal. No one does. Secondly, you are not required to forgive. Forgiveness is something that happens in the process of healing and is aided by communication. Attempting to guilt or coerce someone into forced forgiveness can re-traumatize them, so don't do it. If not forgiving someone is the thing keeping you from letting them back into your life because they are bad for you, protect yourself first. Forgiveness may come down the road, not in time. That's a cliche that, forgiveness will come in time. That's false. Time gives the process of reconciliation a chance to work. But when something is taken from someone, something must be given to fill that hole. Otherwise, it's not forgiveness. It's submission. Thirdly, you can't force yourself to trust. The more you try, the more distrusting you often become, and it spreads to people that actually have earned your trust. Because when you try to force yourself to trust someone else, you're not trusting your own instincts regarding how you really feel about that person. Trust is earned, not demanded. This is part of why childhood abuse and neglect is so damaging. We were dependent on our parents, and they, or someone they allowed, access to us, they hurt us. It's hard to really understand trust in light of that. And it is possible to trust someone in some ways and not in others. That's actually pretty common. Like I said off the top, you can trust a particular friend to support you when you're down, but you can't necessarily trust that friend to keep a secret. And for God's sakes, if you want someone to keep a secret, please say, please keep this a secret, or don't tell anyone. Don't expect that every conversation you have, no matter how awful, they're sworn to silence on. That's, you're not being trustworthy when you're saying a bunch of two-faced things and expecting a friend to keep that secret. As another aside on that one, certain secrets, when you're being backstabby, that shouldn't be kept. Keeping certain other secrets can get you possibly charged with crimes. Someone should not expect you to cover up, say, illegal activity, right? This next one's very important. If someone is expressing thoughts of suicide, never promise to keep that a secret. It's better that the person is alive and feeling betrayed than you having to live with keeping the secret that killed them. Actual, suicide prevention training, they say never keep suicidal ideations a secret. The person may be mad at you, but they're still around, which is better than the flip of that, right? Not every secret should be kept, and not every feeling of betrayal is necessarily founded. What? Okay. People can feel betrayed when you don't accept their excuses, right? Like I said, I didn't mean to, or I forgot, right? It could be very much true that the person didn't mean to betray your trust, and you're somehow betraying them by not letting them explain or not accepting that they didn't mean to. Here's the thing. The best way to prove that they didn't mean to is to not do it again. If it's unintentional, they'll be more aware. Worse, if someone gets offended by the fact that you find I didn't mean to or I forgot inadequate, each of those statements on their own, that's a big red flag. Adults are responsible for what they do. If someone can seemingly remember plenty of things, movie lines, historical facts, the theme song to every anime under the sun, but suddenly has a bad memory, mostly when it comes to things requiring consideration of other people, that's not actually a bad memory. That's a sign that they don't prioritize being considerate, so their brains don't treat that information as relevant, so they don't remember. I realized that's why I'm terrible with names. Hear me out. I'm really introverted. And one of the lies trauma tries to tell me is that every person I meet is likely going to hate me because I was put in positions where other people made me look bad to make themselves look better. So when I meet a new person, my brain tends to sort of defensively dump the memory of their name because, trauma lies. It's not going to be important since they just don't like me. People don't like me. So it's just better to forget. It'll hurt less. It's not important. Just another person will crap on me eventually. I have to actively tell myself to stop doing that. It's not true. I can't know. And, maybe people will like me better if I can actually remember their bloody names. I'm still not great with names, but I do find I'm better when I'm not distracted by going, they don't like me, they don't like me, they don't like me, they don't like me, right? Makes sense? See, it's not paying attention really at the time that makes you forget, as opposed to an actual bad memory. If you actually have a bad memory, write things down, but for God's sakes, be considerate when other people forget things too. Other people are not responsible for remembering things for you. Similarly, when I'm trying to figure out a logistical problem, like I'm really focused on putting together furniture or trying to figure out a schedule, if someone tells me something that isn't connected to that problem, I won't remember it because I'm hyper-focused. And I will actually tell people in those moments, I'm going to need you to remind me of that because I won't remember. I'm too overwhelmed right now. Of course, that means I'm also understanding of people in the same situations. Like I said, if some people were distracted and didn't remember, or they're going through a bad time and so they've got brain fog, I get it. The rules have to be the same for everyone. Be wary of people who hold you to a standard that they don't hold themselves to. No one has a perfect memory, but I've noticed that people who use the bad memory excuse, they love to point out whenever they think they're repeating themselves. Treat those double standards as red flags. There are plenty of examples like that. of the double standards. Oh, they expect you to tell them everything, but they don't tell you very much. They keep secrets, right? Those double standards that they don't own, those are people lacking the self-awareness to truly be trustworthy. And if you're thinking, wow, there are a lot of people in that category, yeah, you're right. Now, no one's self-awareness is perfect. So I'd be neglecting something pretty important if I didn't give some advice about what to do when you're the one who betrayed a trust. After the next break. Questions, comments, concerns, Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website that's working again. Fill out the contact form while you're there. Join our mailing list at Not Therapy Show on socials. We'll be back talking what to do, how to start to fix it when you betray someone on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We're still talking trust and betrayal, and we have lots of time at the end of this show. I am just going to speak from the heart here as someone who has been betrayed a lot, but also, someone who has been blamed, been expected to be accountable sometimes for my own mistakes, sometimes for mistakes that a team member made. And, when you're the person in charge, ultimately the buck stops with you. And this is something that is a learned skill on multiple levels. Knowing how to eat enough crow to actually earn forgiveness. And true forgiveness is earned. If you just expect they'll be okay with it, right? They'll understand. And they don't, that's not them letting you down. That's them having enough. And that's the first thing. If you're a better to beg forgiveness than ask permission type, you better really be prepared to do some grade A begging and mean it. We all get into situations where we know we're going to do something that somebody's not going to like. If it's important enough for you to go against what you know someone feels, you have to be prepared to make it right after the fact. You're knowingly upsetting them, right? Now, you could think they're in the wrong about being upset, but still, you knowingly upset them. Now, first of all, are you sorry that you betrayed them? If you're not, well, why are you friends with this person? Why are you working with this person? Why are you in this person's orbit? If you regret nothing for betraying them, it means two things. You don't think they're a terribly good person, or they don't think you're a terribly good person. Either way, not great, right? So are you really sorry? Do you understand where they're coming from? Talk, pen, phrase. Listen twice before you talk once. This gets missed all the time. Listen twice before you talk once. The number of people who have stepped in it with me lately by saying, I'm sorry I hurt you, when I wasn't hurt. I was inconvenienced, or worse. The issue was you have made a mess here and I'm tired of cleaning up for you. That isn't being hurt. That's being fed up. If you're not apologizing for the correct thing, expect to continue to apologize until the other person is satisfied with your apology. Now, if you believe, that person is never going to be satisfied, again, that's you showing you don't trust that person. And one of the things about being around people that you don't trust is you end up behaving in an untrustworthy way because everybody is trying to outmaneuver everyone like a telenovela or a particularly bad episode of Game of Thrones. You know those episodes of House of the Dragon when people are just doing these weird underhanded things and it's like, why are you being so stupid? It would be smarter to just, have a conversation about stuff instead of killing each other's kids, right? Like, you kill somebody's kid, they're probably not gonna forgive you anytime soon. Actions have consequences. And if you're not willing to accept the consequences, don't do the action. Now, what if somebody is, you think, overreacting? Well, I say top 10 phrase, other people don't have to like your boundaries, but they do have to respect them, right? It doesn't necessarily matter if you think someone's overreacting. That is their reaction. If you think they're manipulating you, if they're doing that double standard thing of getting very, very upset when you do something, but wanting total understanding when they do something similar, that's a problem in the relationship. And it may indicate that, again, this is not somebody you should have in your life. But this is a case-by-case basis. Sometimes you might just being too judgmental. And before you dismiss someone as emotional or overreacting, make sure you understand why the emotions are so strong. Because emotionality is not an inherently bad thing. And if you're using authentic expression of someone's feelings as something to beat them down with, you're the problem, right? If you know someone's unhappy, it's not necessarily the time. You're not in a position to decide how unhappy they're allowed to be. That has to happen between people. If they want to say later, I overreacted and it's sincere, that's up to them. But if you really want to be forgiven, if you want to trust again, the worst possible thing you can do is stand in judgment of them, because nobody wants to be judged by the person who they feel betrayed by. They have every right to go, get out of my sight in that moment. The next thing you have to do if you really have messed up, if you really have betrayed them, really understand why you did it. No laziness here. Absolutely no laziness here allowed. Healthy goals are based on things you can control. If you don't understand why you did it, I guarantee you'll do it again. And every time you do this, every time you betray someone, every time you forget something they told you bothered them, the fix, the apology has to be so much better the next time and the next time and the next time. After which point you hit a point where there's no apology, there's no make good in the world good enough to, make right the fact that you did it to them again. This is just the realities of people. Everyone's good nature and goodwill is finite. If someone keeps, quote unquote, forgiving you again and again and again, they're not really forgiving you. They're submitting to the bad treatment. Do you want someone submitting to you? If you do, you either have a really, really pronounced kink that there are more healthy ways of working out, or that's a sign of some serious dark triad tendencies in you. People who think that way, people who want submission, they're not actually sorry. Back to step one, right? But if you actually are sorry, like I said, really understand where the behavior came from. Really understand it. Because if you don't, how can they? If you don't understand why you did it, how can you honestly tell them it won't happen again? If you are really struggling to figure out what's going on, this is when the guidance of a trusted friend, and if you're betraying a bunch of people's trust, the chances are you don't trust anyone yourself. That's why you keep doing it. Mess them up before they mess you up, right? Law of the jungle. If you don't have a trusted friend, a mentor, this is the point to maybe seek out therapy and go in not with the manipulative nonsense of, I feel so bad, I feel so bad. I am doing things that are not trustworthy and I don't know why. This is what I need help with. There are no shortcuts to this. Until you're ready to face that you keep screwing people over, you're going to keep doing it. And a lot of people continue to do that stuff because they're running from the guilt of the last, 20, 30 times. And it just adds and adds and adds. And they're just running from this juggernaut monster of their own guilt and shame. And they keep blowing past people's boundaries, keep betraying people, keep not being a person that deserves to be trusted because they can't stop running from their own prior bad acts. At some point, you have to stop. And you have to truly own what you did. And, some of the people that you wronged may not be around anymore. You can never make it right with them. But you have to accept in yourself that it actually was you. No excuses. That other person may have done stuff to annoy you, or they did wrong too, but they are responsible for you. You are responsible for them. There are some times where you're in a no-win situation and you have to choose. And you have to... And this is where betrayal gets tough. Because say someone did something really bad and asked you to keep it a secret. And you're afraid of the person, right? Well, that's an indication that something abusive is going on. But you say you'll keep the secret, but then you go and tell someone because it's just wrong and it's eating at you. If you really feel truly in your heart, no BS, no doing this because it's easy, because I'm afraid is overused sometimes. If you really think a person will punish you for standing up to them and saying, no, I won't keep your secret anymore, then this is one of these situations where you have to betray them and not be sorry. Because what they were asking you for was not a thing any reasonable person in their right mind would have agreed to keep secret, right? And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on. Something as simple as somebody cheats on your spouse and expects you to keep it a secret when the spouse is your friend. I wouldn't recommend getting in the middle of that because the spouse isn't going to believe you. But are you betraying that friend, or is the friend betraying their marriage? They should never put you in that situation. Similarly, if somebody lies to someone and tells you and has no inclination to ever tell the other person they lied, they're not just trying to buy time. They're actually just, they enjoy making people look foolish. That's them betraying the other person, not you betraying them by making that public. Manipulative, controlling people will try to make you believe that any honest thing you do is a betrayal of them. And obviously the past 39 minutes, 40 minutes of this show is not intended to excuse that kind of behavior. This is about the times you actually do mess things up for someone. Now let's talk about when you didn't mean to do it, because these are actually the more difficult things. You did it accidentally. And you may be dealing with your own stuff, which means you're just not aware enough of your own behavior to think about how it affects other people. That's an indication that something in your own life has got to change. You are overwhelmed. You are overextended. Something is going on. And it could be that you keep doing things that upset people and make them feel betrayed without meaning to, because you are running from the own horrible voices in your own head. You are have such low self-esteem. You are so afraid of being seen and judged for who you really are, that you're doing things just out of impulse. You could be perpetuating abuse behaviors that happened to you as a kid. All kids go through that period where they lie to make themselves bigger, and people who grow beyond that phase then grow out of it because they mature and realize, no, lying's not right. It doesn't help you. It certainly doesn't help the people you lie to. But some people get stuck in that, 4 to 6 year old mindset. I've met some of them. Then, those guys who claim they've slept with women they haven't, that's a big one. Women who say, oh, that guy, he hit on me and he's so creepy. And that's not actually, oh my God, I'm bothered by that. That's a humble brag. That's a guy hit on me, but I'm going to pretend not to like it. Those people, they're stunted. That's a them problem, right? But again, if you're one of those people, there is hope. You can't stop. It's just that original period of actually stopping and letting it catch up to you and letting it, smack full into you. That's really hard. But the longer you wait to do it, the longer you keep running, the harder it's going to be, the harder that impact is going to be, the worse the guilt and shame are going to be. And I've seen it break people. I've seen people get to the point where they're not capable of telling the truth anymore. They are the biggest relationship in their lives is to their lies, because those lies have become the cast, the splint on an absolutely pulverized sense of self. A lot of people I've seen this happen to are people who were badly abused as children and, did a lot of therapy that taught them to say the quote unquote right things, but they never actually internalized it. And, even some really good therapists, they can only do so much. A person's got to be ready. And some people are never ready. And if you're not ready to face those demons, you're not trustworthy. That is just a fact. I say this as somebody who had to face them myself. I had to face the fact that I really was a horrible burden to everyone around me. I had to face the idea that nobody liked me. Nobody wanted to work with me. No one could stand me. I was the problem. I had to face that. And it was hard, doesn't even begin to describe it. But you gotta do that before you can show up authentic for other people. Because remember that thing I said about struggling to remember people's names? Well, that was part of it. I was so used to hearing, oh yeah, it's your fault. Nobody likes you. This is all you. And it wasn't true. People said it to me to manipulate me because it worked. I didn't want to be the person nobody liked. So I was willing to be the person nobody liked. I was willing to wear that label because, again, I was just submitting. And you can't submit to other people's framing of you and be authentic. And that authenticity is what's going to allow you to be trustworthy. And a lot of people are such people pleasers that they agree to do something that they're never going to be able to do. Now, with all of this, if you've gotten to the point where, yes, you are showing up accountable, you truly realize you were wrong, you realize what you did is unacceptable, actually say you're sorry. This is something a lot of insecure people skip. They choke on the words, I'm sorry. Now, this is another thing people miss. It's not enough to be sorry. God of War says, do not be sorry, be better. Go Kratos. Love that guy. And Kratos is tough. He's a hard man, but he's right. Don't be sorry, be better. Ideally, you're both. But if you're so busy being sorry that you spin out and can't be better, well, choose better, not sorry. Do you have a plan to really make it better? Can you catch up on the work that you let somebody down for? Will you call and say it wasn't them, it was me? Can you do something to actively fix the problem? If you can, great, do it. If you can't, that matters. If you have wrecked things for someone, okay, that opportunity might be blown. Find them another one. Do something to make good. Again, if you just want someone to let you off the hook, you are not seeking forgiveness. You are seeking submission. And if you don't know, if you don't quite know what you did wrong, if you don't know why somebody's so upset, ask. Really listen. Sometimes that's all it takes is somebody gets off their chest how much pain they're in. That can sometimes really be enough. Make sure you listen. Listen twice before you talk once. Top 10 phrase, right? Really listen to the other person's perspective. Because if you don't know how to make it right, that may give you some answers as to how to fix it. And if you don't have a clue, ask, is there anything I can do to make this right? Now, if you ask this, be very, very, very careful that you do your absolute godly best to actually do what the person said. Because I've had a lot of people, I've given people other chances because they're like, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to make this better? And you tell them, I need you to take initiative. I need you to go first, whatever. And then things go on and things don't improve and they don't do the thing you said would fix the issue. And then they get, I forgot or I didn't know how. That's another betrayal. When someone has let you back into their life, has given you another chance because you said you would do the thing to fix the problem, and you don't do it, you have compounded the damage to their trust because they gave you another chance. You fooled them once, and then you fooled them twice, and so they're feeling shame. There is no substitute to doing the work. No pretty words overcome emotional laziness. You have to mean it. You have to mean that you're sorry and you're going to do better and actually have a plan. Or don't expect forgiveness because you don't deserve it. Questions, comments, concerns, Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website that's fixed now. Or at nottherapy on socials. That's my time running out. Again, you're crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. Even when you do 20 some odd minute end segments. Thanks for listening. Hope it was worth it. See you next time.